Yo. Hello, internet people. I wanted to make a video, show off my new shirt for my wife. Love this movie. It was amazing. Today I want to talk about a very popular subject. At least my students used to think so. I want to talk about Reiki, Harry Potter, and the Force. But first, I want to give a disclaimer. I am just straight up an ally of the transgender community. I was raised in upstate New York, which is not New York City, but New York like the country. Yeehaw, you know, that's where I grew up. While I was growing up there, I was very blessed to have multiple trips to various Iroquois Native American reservations. And from there, I learned many things, including how awesome a longhouse would be to live in. But also did my own independent research about Native Americans. Even at a young age, I felt really bad about how people who looked just like me had forced them off their land not too long ago. So as I was learning about the Iroquois, I found out that they were actually instrumental in a peace accord that stopped multiple generations of warfare between the Native American clans, tribes in the area, and created I think it was the 5 nations. I can't remember how many nations were in the accord, but that peace agreement lasted for around 100 years. And that nation, that conglomerate of groups, was what the initial Mayflower pilgrims encountered when they first got here. The Native Americans, at least the Iroquois that were native to the area I grew up in, they had 9 genders. So I didn't learn anything about transgenderism from where I grew up. So the only exposure I had as a child and as a teenager to this issue was how the Iroquois felt about it. I always thought it was a little fishy how we demanded if you had this body, you had to act this way, and if you had this body, you had to act another way. I always felt really fishy about that, but I knew people get very worked up about the things they see with their eyes. But in terms of genders, personally, I don't think 9's enough. I'm really educated about some of the biology and the ways that human beings can be born different, and I'm very aware of how people who are born different often don't talk about it, and so we don't hear about it. That wasn't how it was with the Iroquois, man. You could just be however you were, and they had names for you, and if there weren't names, the shamans all got together and figured it out, and that's how it... Well, I don't know if that's exactly how it was, but that's the impression that I got as I did my research. So, moving on to the more fun part of the video, I want to talk about Harry Potter. And one of my first Reiki students, when I was training her, she continually was making references to Harry Potter, because Harry Potter was, it was a phenomenon back in those days. I took it upon myself to touch upon this cultural milestone, and I read the first 3 books, and I saw snippets of the other movies, I read the first 3 books, saw the first 3 movies, and then just I just read the Wikipedia for the rest of it. So I know the plot, okay? So Harry Potter fans, if you're watching this, understand I am an ally. One of the things that really speaks to me about the Harry Potter series is this wonderful mythological showing of the battle between good and evil. And I think a great way that they show that isn't necessarily with the battle with Voldemort, because that's just the most obvious one, but one of the things I use to elucidate this point that I'm trying to make about Harry Potter and how it will eventually relate to Reiki is Harry Potter is not actually a very good wizard. He's all right, I guess, but he just sort of has the way behind him. He is the protagonist, and his parents who reside... Oh, spoilers for Harry Potter and for what I'm going to say about Star Wars in a little bit, just so we're clear. His parents reside in the afterlife. in the afterlife of the wizarding world, there's like ungodly amounts of magical power that they repeatedly bestow unto Harry Potter in order to save him from, well, just in order to give him plot armor to get through the 7 books. And literally, like, when he gets the lightning bolt on his forehead from the death spell from Voldemort when he's a kid, his parents' love, that same power, protects him from dying and just gives him the scar. And that happens, I mean, from what I understand, it happens at numerous points. Not to mention, there's other, like, Avatar-ish powers that protect him, like the Patronos. So, he has this really powerful Patronos that I think has, like, something to do with his father or something like that. Like, he may not be very good at magic, and he may struggle with it, but he knows the way, and he struggles with darkness because he has a piece of that darkness in him, and that struggle between him and his darkness and the forces of good with the forces of evil represented by Voldemort, that's the main plot. But let me tell you something that happens in, I think it's the 3rd book or the 2nd one. I want to talk a minute about Hermione Granger. And let me tell you, Hermione Granger is the main character of the Harry Potter series. Like, Potter is the one that precedes the plot and is the most obvious representation of the mythological class. Let me tell you something about Hermione Granger. Hermione Granger is actually a good wizard, and she's a good wizard because she studies the books that talk about the magical things. She's so powerful that in a book, she uses a tool that allows her to travel in time, and she originally uses that power to study more and take more classes so she can become a better wizard. Okay? That is a character, if you ask me. And I digress, because I'm getting a little too into the story now and I'm getting off my point. My point is that Hermione, when she is at the end of the story where they have to use the time travel in order to unravel everything about the plot and save the day and everything like that, at the very end, there's a moment in the book, I don't know if it's actually explained in the movie, but it is in the book, where she says to herself, this time device and my power over time itself is too broken. It's too, into video game speak, it's too powerful. She's basically like a god. And she realizes, like, I cannot continually wield this power. And she sets it aside, right? That is the true human interaction of good over evil. It's very rare that there actually is some sort of big overarching evil that there is to defeat. Usually the demons we have to fight are within ourselves. Okay, so let me move on to the next thing, because I know this is kind of rambling, but I am eventually getting to a point here. So, in Star Wars, this is the extended universe. This is a video game called Knights of the Old Republic. If you're familiar with Star Wars, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a character named Kreia, who is a master and mentors you earlier in the game, but later on she becomes the villain. And the reason she's a villain is because what she wants to do with the Force. Okay, so if you watch Star Wars, you know about the Force, so at this point you can kind of understand it doesn't matter about the video game. Her intention is to kill the Force. She wants to do away with the Force, and she finds a way to do that using Sith magic or whatever. And she presents to, before you defeat her at the end of the game, spoiler alert, she presents her philosophy to you. And the idea is that the Force narrates, the Force creates these epics of the light versus the dark. And people die, and empires rise and fall, and people who want nothing to do with grand, galactic, philosophical, ideological, violent conflict get brutally wrapped up in the middle of it. And she believed that although the Force allowed people these wonderful powers or whatever, it would be better if it wasn't around at all, so that people could make their own fate. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So why am I going over all this? Well, even in religion, God can do ill, right? And the gods can do ill. Not ill objectively, right? Because objectively, in the ultimate truth, the gods are doing what is objectively right. And I get that, dude. I was philosophy. There's Kant. There's the numeral and innumeral realm. The innumeral realm is perfection. The Greeks thought of that back in like 500 BC. I get it, dude. The realm of perfection, and sometimes in order to attain or sustain perfection, certain things must be burned away. I get it. But sometimes the thing on the receiving end of perfection is the little guy suffering because he doesn't have a voice. And that happens all the time. Sometimes people sacrifice good for the perfect, and they do that because they believe that nature can be cruel, that God could be cruel, maybe cruel for the right reasons, maybe to punish for something that it was bad. But I think that really when we think of the overarching energies of the universe and our lives, we think that because we are capable of horrible things and whatever, evil, whatever you want to call it, we assume that the universe or the overarching, manager of the universe or the overarching energies, the energies beyond just the physical matter, must also adhere to the same good and evil dichotomy that we do. And I think that ultimately that philosophy, that underlying philosophy of mankind, that good and evil is baked into every level of existence, including a level that could be above ours in a higher energetic or heavenly or mystical realm, that even there it must persist. And why wouldn't we think that? If you look back through human history, going back to like 4,000, 5,000 BC, I mean, now we have better healthcare and we have better amenities and things are made better since the Industrial Revolution. But even the Industrial Revolution was made on the backs of slaves and serfs and peasants and all that type of thing. And, well, to quote Thomas Hobbes, life was short and brutish. And so it's no wonder that we think the cruelness and the callousness and the uncaring of things goes all the way to the top. So I completely understand how whatever it must feel to have me sit here on your screen and say, Reiki doesn't have ill. Reiki doesn't have evil. There's no evil here. It just won't work. If you try to do Reiki and you feel like a miserable, malevolent, resentful, vibrating being, then it's just not going to work. You're not going to create anything. You're not going to be able to use your hands to heal your body, and you're not going to be able to imagine and sense your intuition and move towards a better version of your life or a better version of yourself. It's just not going to work. It's not going to help you with evil intentions, though. Like, Reiki isn't going to back up your, well, evil intentions. I'll leave it at that. Reiki is about finding your way, especially if you've lost your way. It's about finding your way by following the good feeling. And sometimes when you start getting that good feeling and you can get that good feeling flowing, then you can act. And through those actions, you can create awesome, amazing things for you to experience. But sometimes, and this is why I made like several videos on the idea of yin, dude. Sometimes when you don't have the energy, when you're not feeling it, or you're feeling angry, or you're feeling low vibration, you just gotta stop. And that is what the main character tells Kreia in Star Wars, is like, dude, I agree with you, but that doesn't mean killing the Force is the answer. And I think that's, I mean, I never read the last book of Harry Potter, but I think I'm pretty sure there is a moment where Harry Potter tries to like turn Voldemort to the light side. You know, like, just stop is what he's, just stop. And it's okay to just stop. And it's okay for stopping to also mean going to work that day, right? Because if you're ruminating on hate and you're ruminating on resentment and you're angry and you're thinking of, you know, what your sister said to you when you were feeling down 12 years ago and all that stuff, I mean, never mind the fact that that'll eventually seep from your head into the rest of your body. It is wise to learn how to slow down, how to stop. And that, I know this is like a Reiki channel, but there's a Native American technique known across various different tribes called stopping the world. Stop the world. The whole world. Yeah, you gotta pay bills. You just stop. You don't have to think about that all the time. You don't have to think about hang-ups all the time. And learning to do that is why I describe yin so much, which is resonant being, which is the empty part of the whole of which the active yang is also a part. It's okay to just be, and you can trust that unlike certain unnamed deities, and unlike Voldemort, and unlike Darth Vader and the Emperor, this thing that I'm describing here will not have it out for you, and it won't judge you, and it won't condemn you, and it won't shuffle you off to an unpreferred afterlife if you don't behave properly. So anyway, I do think it's important to show through these stories that a big motivator of the plot and a big motivator of your mind's engine and your mind moving forward is detecting threats. And sometimes if you have trouble dealing with threats or mustering up the will to deal with the threats, then your mind can paint it as evil, and that can get you motivated. And sometimes that's good. Like, sometimes it's good. Sometimes if you need to be motivated, it's good to be motivated by any means possible. But sometimes, in order to stop more ill befalling you, to stop creating more ill for yourself, you just need to stop the action at the very least. Just don't act. That doesn't mean don't go to work. It doesn't mean don't feed your family. It just means stop trying to control the narrative, control the universe through action. Stop, resonate, intend, feel how awesome it will be to have those things that you really want, that you take a second to think about really wanting, and move forward. Because, you know, there's a reason, I think, beyond just a meditation, that Usui gave us the motto. And the motto is, just for today, don't worry, don't be angry, be grateful, work with integrity, and be kind to others. And man, that's just, if you want real magic in your life, live by that, man. So, thanks guys. Have a good week.